Even though space and the ocean are two completely opposite structures, both possess fascinating characteristics. While space is a place mankind will never be able to fully explore, our oceans are right beneath us, yet a place we know very little about. So why is it that today, as humanity, we are focused more on space rather than our oceans? Why is it that while hundreds of studies are conducted about space in a single year, the number of these studies for oceans is so low? Today, together with you, we will take a detailed look at this topic, and I will try to explain it to you as best as I can. Before moving on to our video, don't forget to like the video from the buttons below, subscribe to my channel to support me, and state your ideas in the comments for new video ideas. Now, if you are ready, we can move on to our video. First of all, when we look at the history of humanity, we see that the sense of curiosity within humans has always been driven in two different directions. One is upward toward the eternal space, and the other is downward toward the dark spots of our planet, namely the depths of our oceans. Space, which we call the sky, has been seen since early ages as the symbol of the unknown, divine events, and infinity, while our oceans have been accepted as the mysterious, dark, and hard-to-reach regions of the world. So much so that even today, many people think that in our oceans there are traces of many living beings, mysterious structures, and civilizations lost to the cruel blow of history. Some people even exaggerate further and take the matter to a fantastic science fiction level, thinking that oceans are places where we communicate with aliens and that the vast majority of traces showing aliens have visited us before are in the oceans. Actually, it is like this. Our oceans are truly very mysterious places that hide big secrets. Maybe the traces of certain truly lost civilizations are still there, waiting for us to discover them. Anyway, as I said, oceans have always been accepted as a mysterious, dark, and hard-to-reach region, but an interesting situation has emerged in the modern era of science. While oceans, which cover about 70% of the Earth's surface, are still largely unexplored, humanity examines space in a much more detailed way with billions of dollars of investments. This situation, although it seems illogical when looked at on the surface, makes much more sense from many aspects, technologically, economically, physically, and psychologically, when we look at the reality of the matter. First of all, physically, the depths of our oceans host an immense pressure. The pressure encountered in ocean depths increases linearly with depth, rising by approximately 1 atmosphere every 10 meters. In particular, the deepest point of the world, like the Mariana Trench, has a depth of about 11 kilometers, and the pressure in this region rises above 1,000 atmospheres. This means a force of about 1 ton per square centimeter. For any structure to survive in such an environment, it must be extraordinarily durable, usually made of titanium alloys or special composite materials. Even the smallest structural error causes the vehicle to be instantly destroyed by implosion. As you know, in the Ocean Gate accident that happened in recent history, the bathyscaphe vehicle was not made of the necessary materials in terms of durability due to cost, and although no problem was experienced at first, the continuous exposure of the vehicle to high pressure caused great fatigue on the vehicle after a while. On its last voyage, the vehicle, unable to withstand this pressure any longer, collapsed inward very quickly and became a grave for everyone inside. Think about it. The pressure at the depth that vehicle descended to is at a much lower level than the pressure at the bottom of the Mariana Trench. However, even against that, it is impossible to withstand when necessary precautions are not taken. I know many of you are saying right now that the Mariana Trench has been descended to before and observations were made there. Yes, this is true. Although it has not been officially announced, the Mariana Trench has been descended to more than 20 times, either manned or unmanned. But the critical point here is that many vehicles we send there cannot display the performance they need to display. To give an example, when descending to the bottom, the sand at the bottom rises into the air in an incredible way because of the vehicle, and for a long time those inside the vehicle cannot understand what is going on outside in any way. Also, because it is extremely dark there, scientists or the researcher descending there must use highly professional cameras, lights, and scanners, and here a risk situation arises. The slightest problem that the vehicle will experience in a very deep region like the Mariana Trench will, with a 95% probability, cause both the complete destruction of the vehicle and the loss of life of the person inside. Because of these risks, descending into our oceans is much harder than thought. Along with this, according to many people, the space environment always seems more dangerous at first glance. However, the situation is not exactly like that. Thanks to the technology and engineering knowledge we have today, the space environment is a bit more controllable for us. There is no external pressure in space, space, meaning vehicles are not crushed from the outside. On the contrary, we need to maintain internal pressure. This very situation fundamentally changes the engineering design. Instead of resisting pressure, keeping the pressure inside usually means lower material thickness and less structural stress. Spacecraft are designed to be protected against vacuum, temperature differences, and radiation, but these factors are more predictable and modelable systems compared to the sudden and destructive forces created by deep-sea pressure. Another critical difference is communication and data transfer. Radio waves used in space exploration can travel millions of kilometers in a vacuum environment without suffering almost any attenuation. To give an example, thanks to this today, we can exchange data between a robot on Mars and Earth. However, when we go underwater, the situation moves to a completely different dimension. Water absorbs electromagnetic waves very quickly, and therefore classic radio communication becomes completely ineffective. Instead, acoustic communication is used, but this method both has a much lower bandwidth and is in a position highly open to delays and interference. This situation seriously limits real-time control and data transfer in deep-sea explorations. Also, as I mentioned just now, light is a very important limiting factor. Sunlight weakens rapidly starting from the ocean's surface and disappears almost completely after about 200 meters. After this point, a region called the aphotic zone begins and a completely dark environment is in question. For visual exploration, it is necessary to use artificial light, but this also increases energy consumption and keeps the visibility distance limited. In space, even though it is dark, telescopes can reach incredible details by making observations in different regions of the electromagnetic spectrum. For example, infrared telescopes can examine star-forming regions by providing data beyond visible light. The best example I can give for this situation is the James Webb Space Telescope. As I mentioned in my previous videos, the James Webb Telescope has given us incredible information about space thanks to its infrared vision and has carried our speed in our space adventure one step forward. Economic and strategic factors also play a very important decisive role in determining this balance. Space technologies are one of the cornerstones of the infrastructure of the modern world. Global communication, internet connections, financial transactions, weather forecasts, and GPS systems depend directly on satellite technologies. All of these systems have developed as a byproduct of space exploration. For this reason, investments made in space provide returns not only scientifically, but also economically. Ocean research, on the other hand, usually does not offer such direct and large-scale economic contributions. Another important factor is geopolitics. Looked at from a geopolitical perspective, space has become one of the most critical areas of the global power struggle. The space race, which started during the Cold War era, was seen as an indicator of technological superiority, and investments made in this field increased rapidly. Landing on the moon did not only consist of a scientific success, but was also evaluated as a political victory for states. Today, although there is no such competition officially, states have been focusing more on their own space programs, especially in recent years, and are in a race with each other to discover new things and be the first. So much so that, as I mentioned before in the space station video, states are now building their own space stations and turning towards their own projects, their own scientists. The best example we can show among these countries is China. China, with the work it has done in recent years, has caught up with Russia and America in the space race and has closed a large part of the difference between them. In addition, satellite networks, military observation systems, and space-based defense technologies provide a very important strategic advantage for states. Oceans, on the other hand, carry more local or regional strategic importance and therefore have not become the center of global competition on the same scale. Looked at from a scientific perspective, space exploration seeks answers to humanity's most fundamental questions. Questions such as how the universe was formed, how stars evolved, the nature of black holes, and most importantly, whether life exists elsewhere in the universe, represent the deepest curiosities of the human mind. The answers to these questions do not only produce scientific knowledge, but also help humanity understand its own existence. Ocean research is also extremely critical and extremely important to understand the building blocks of our world, but it usually answers more limited and world-oriented questions. At this point, the public reacts to states and scientists because rightfully people say this: while we have not yet fully understood and explored the very world we live in, how are we going to understand and interpret life on other planets or natural events? At this point, I also agree with these criticisms, meaning one does not necessarily have to be ahead of the other. If states or private companies really wanted to research the oceans, they could have given the necessary equal budget to both space and oceans. However, please do not misunderstand me here. Our oceans are not unimportant systems. On the contrary, oceans are systems too important to be underestimated from a scientific standpoint. A large part of oxygen production on Earth is carried out by phytoplanktons. These microscopic organisms maintain the oxygen balance in the atmosphere through photosynthesis. In addition, oceans play a critical role in regulating the global climate system. Heat distribution takes place thanks to ocean currents, and this process ensures that the Earth is a habitable planet. Deep-sea ecosystems, on the other hand, contain organisms that have adapted to extreme conditions, and these organisms can open the door to new discoveries in the fields of biotechnology and medicine. Another reason why oceans are unexplored is the balance of cost and risk. Deep-sea missions are usually short-term and high cost. A diving operation requires special equipment, trained personnel, and high safety precautions. In addition, every mission contains serious risks. Space missions are of course expensive as well, but they have become more sustainable thanks to long-term projects and automation. For example, while a satellite can provide continuous data for years, a submarine mission is usually limited to hours or days. However, there is good news that technological developments experienced in recent years have started to change this balance slowly. Autonomous underwater vehicles and remotely operated vehicles can perform long-term missions without the need for human intervention. Thanks to advanced sonar systems and high-resolution mapping techniques, the ocean floor has begun to be examined in more detail. However, these developments have not yet reached a level that can be compared with the scale reached by space exploration. In addition, human psychology plays an important role in this choice. The sky has inspired humans throughout history. Stars have taken place at the center of mythologies, religions, and scientific theories. Space evokes a sense of infinity, and this triggers humans' desire to explore in a very intense way. Oceans, on the other hand, mostly represent the frightening face of the unknown. Darkness, pressure, and invisibility create a perception of threat in the human mind. For this reason, while space arouses curiosity, oceans often create hesitation. This is how it is, dear friends. Even though both space and our oceans are two magnificent systems, unfortunately, we give much more importance to one of them. However, I have no doubt that in the coming years, the interest and research towards the ocean will increase to an extremely high degree. Even though I am a person in love with space, the depths of our oceans, the mysterious living beings, and structures hidden in those depths have always been a mystery at the focus of my curiosity. Lately, I have been spending the time I spend researching space on our oceans as well, and learning a lot of things about them. I am as sure as my name that in our future, as the mystery of our oceans comes to light, we will be very surprised. I hope you liked my video and enjoyed what I told. Unfortunately, that's all from me for today. Before saying goodbye, don't forget to like my video, subscribe to my channel to support me, and comment to state your ideas. See you in our next video. Take very good care of yourselves. Goodbye.